if you have this blob, I'll call AI, somewhere getting positioned in your queries, you're shopping, you're thinking, you're doing something, the attribution of the AI to your click-through is missing. And so this is a big difference. So the attribution chain is broken, and it's changing the landscape for advertising.
Hello and welcome to the AI Master Group podcast, featuring the people who are building the future of AI in their work today. I'm your host, Jim Griffin. Today, I'm very happy to have as my guest Michael Koved, who is the president of Advanced Analytics, which is a consultancy, of course, in that field. He's got 30 plus years of senior roles, senior vice president in corporate life at various top brands, including, for example, at Wells Fargo, the SVP of Enterprise Marketing Customer Analytics. Currently, he's the senior fellow at Wharton, Artificial Intelligence and Analysis for Business. He's been a lecturer various times at Cal Berkeley, and he began it all as a PhD in economics from the University of Pennsylvania. Welcome, Michael.
Hey, thank you, Jim. It's great to be here with you.
It's great to have you here, Michael. Of course, I know you well. We've heard a little bit about your career just now, but can you describe your journey from when you got your PhD to what you're doing today?
Sure. I thought of four different kind of threads. I call them constant career threads. Things have been with me all these years, and the first of those is really a deep interest I have in how people interact with money or incentives, and that understanding human behavior in that through that lens drew me into microeconomics. The second area, is kind of my primary passion sweet spot is to make a difference. Whatever I do, I want to have an impact, influence the course of, whatever I'm involved with. And that's a really big motivator. Another one on the people side is, I have this expression, creativity knows no boundaries. And I love being motivated and inspired by smart, interesting people, and particularly people who have a very different life experience than my own. And the last piece is really a fascination with technology, which brings us into our common ground today about AI.
Oh, that's great. So speaking of common ground and to where we are today, I need to update myself. Last time we spoke, I recall you were involved in some interesting initiatives with a couple of top universities. Can you update me about that?
Oh, sure. I'd like to. So coming up through the corporate world, I noticed just a persistent shortage of skilled analysts, both in finance and in marketing. And, I see a need to equip undergraduates with tools and skills so they can contribute right away. They want to, and we need them. So that feels like a really good match. I work with a professor at SUNY Buffalo's economics department, and we created a credential program, official credential program titled Data Science for Economists. And the program not only provides quantitative skills, but we also include effective communication skills so that students can connect with their audiences about the topics that they specifically analyzed and researched, so they are again, more effective at what they do. The other area is I teach as part of the Wharton Applied Business and Analytics Department, as you mentioned, the initiative for AI and analytics. Each semester, students complete a project for a corporate client using real-world data for a real-world business project. And there's a lot of senior attention because the corporation is investing in the students and supporting this program. And watching these super bright students analyze data, formulate recommendations is just very gratifying. I did my graduate work at Penn, and I just love going back to campus to connect with students. The corporate clients are really great. They're really good at what they do, and so that feels good to connect with them. And then the Wharton staff are on top of their game, and they do a wonderful job connecting the students and the business corporate clients.
So you mentioned just now about, for example, the context there was undergraduates and wanting to make an impact right away. In your experience, are there any foundational skills that you think white collar workers currently need to add to their arsenal today, maybe ones that weren't part of their undergraduate coursework?
Yes, I can think of a couple of things. And I want to give credit to Ethan Malik, who is a professor in the Wharton School. And he talks about good enough AI queries because it's a kind of an 80-20 rule. I think, my observation is that people treat AI platforms like Google. They ask factual questions. Tell me the 3 best places to go on vacation, or tell me 4 theorems on how to solve this math equation. But there's a deeper level, which is really thought partnership. And so I can really engage it and learn as you go. And that could include prompt engineering at the end. I think of where does AI have advantage over very skilled analysts using machine learning libraries? The speed here, the advantage is just phenomenal. The size of the processing here is beyond anything that we've ever really seen. There are features now about bringing disparate data together that didn't exist, 2 or 3 years ago. In feature engineering, now you have new features, and the speed in which models can be developed to identify the most relevant ones. And so it's really starting to match the speed in which we think. Like, understand those differences is the answer to your question.
Very good. A couple of times there you touched on different ways on people that are in consulting, or you were describing the one person who's in business and obviously very expert in what he's doing using one of these tools. And picking up on that in your background, I was thinking about the best-selling book, Freakonomics by Stephen Levitt. That one applied economic theory in novel ways to various societal issues. So I was wondering, with your background in economics, as you have, PhD, do you have any views about the emerging role of AI for employers and employees as viewed from the economics lens?
I do. It's a very, very interesting question, and it's deep. There's an MIT professor, Daron Acemoglu. He was a co-winner of this year's Nobel-prize in economics with a couple other professors. And he argues that AI could significantly impact society negatively if not managed carefully. So what part would be managed carefully? He points out that AI may worsen income inequality by automating jobs, especially low-skill jobs, without creating enough new positions to balance the loss.
You're listening to the AI Master Group podcast.
And he argues that AI could significantly impact society negatively if not managed carefully. So what part would be managed carefully? He points out that AI may worsen income inequality by automating jobs, especially low-skill jobs, without creating enough new positions to balance the loss. And it spills over into social and public policy when the income inequality gets really strong or big. And so what Acemoglu argues for is really to spread the love a bit. And the way I express it, my point of view is skill augmentation comes before pure on automation. Thinking about how can I augment my staff with AI tools to make them more productive, to feel more satisfied, for them to learn. If we look back 100 years, for instance, it was just under 40% of the US labor pool was in agriculture, and now it's less than 2%. So huge shifts there. We no longer have buggy whip manufacturers and switchboard operators. We now have prompt engineers and pediatric oncologists. And that will change, right? So this tide is always rolling up on our shores. It's been that way for a long time. 50 years ago, there were very few nurse practitioners. There wasn't a profession called nurse practitioner. But with the advent of MIS systems around healthcare, and then training, we now have a whole new profession. And the rules vary state by state about what can be done and not. But in essence, it's remove some mundane or routine tasks that doctors would have done, but do that now that there's a whole profession. So that's raising all boats if the tide is rising, and that more people get involved in healthcare. And it's better for patients because they can be seen faster. It's good for, the cost-wise. And professionally, people can grow. They can get out of what was a swim lane they couldn't get out of, and now they can. And it's in that spirit that I think we can harness the potential of humans, but augmenting them with these tools. So there's a real positive. So AI complements human expertise rather than replacing it.
Well, I need to pick up on what you just said. At some point, we need to talk about marketing, and I know that's your focus. So a big question that many marketers have is how these new ad-free methods of finding information online might affect, for example, Google's core search engine business model, and therefore the traditional lead generation pipeline that marketers use. So how do you see that playing out over the months and years to come?
This is one of the most interesting. I'm enjoying this drama unfolding. How is Google? They have somewhere around $230 billion of ad revenue. And that's a big number. ChatGPT started November 2 years ago. It went from about 100 million users in January 2023 to 200 million active users in May of 2024. So in 18 months, it doubled from a big number. So with this meteoric rise, 100 million, and then it doubled in 18 months. So, and that's just the public. That's the ChatGPT version. The world out there is really big of users. So first is, AI tools like Gemini provide way more comprehensive answers than a regular Google search. And it's serving it up for me. So I don't even, I may see it below, but so what it does is it shifts search engine optimization or organic search down, and it makes pay per click more important. There's a lot of money spent on SEO, and right now it's getting shifted to pay per click. So that's one impact from a marketing viewpoint. If you have this blob, I'll call AI, somewhere getting positioned in your queries, you're shopping, you're thinking, you're doing something, the attribution of the AI to your click-through is missing. And so this is a big difference. So the attribution chain is broken, and it's changing the landscape for advertising. And so the money is being really spread out now, really more in a more targeted way for paid ads, for brand advertising in ways that just didn't happen before.
Mm-hmm. And all of this is tied, of course, to this disruption of traditional search by means of generative AI. So that's the generative AI impact there. Before I just wander off from that topic, are there any other changes in marketing other than the Gen AI impact that you've seen as a result of other AI technologies?
I have seen a lot. The marketing technology stack, or MarTech stack, has been tracked for probably at least 15 years, if not more. Where's the growth happening? Right? This year, they've seen the largest growth in the number of tools. Now, there's consolidations, but the growth in tools rose 28% this year over year. The compound annual growth rate for the last 13 or 14 years has been 9%. 2.5 times more, And so where's that growth coming from? About 3/4 of it, just over 3/4, is coming from AI tools. So multivariate testing, A/B testing, but multivariate or experimental design is something, in my view, is an under-tapped revenue source. And why is that? There are many reasons, but among them is having just enough people to do the work. There's an impressive company, Narrativa, who does brief videos, 10 seconds, that are all customized videos, and it's all AI generated. And it fits into an experimental design. So they're always in the market. They're always learning.
Absolutely. So in so many different ways, you've touched on the fact that this is ever changing, the acceleration of change and new technologies, some that you've seen only as recently as the past several days. So if people want to follow up on some of the topics that we've talked about today, and maybe even some of the things that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet because they haven't happened yet, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, Jim. So LinkedIn is an easy way to reach me. I get the messages and I respond pretty quickly. And another is Michael, my first name, at Advanced Analytics, all one word, and plural analytics.tech. That's the other way you can email me.
Okay. Well, Michael, once again, this has been great, very thought-provoking. I really like all the rich detail that you brought in and specific examples rather than very high level, which is very enlightening. So thank you very much for spending the time with me. I enjoyed it a lot. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the AI Master Group podcast. I'm your host, Jim Griffin. Until next time, stay curious and stay in front.